Your figure, Harry. Here's a look at the brand new McFarlane Toys movie Maniacs, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter. The iconic Harry Potter joins the movie Maniacs line with this limited edition figure from McFarlane Toys. This highly detailed 6-inch scale figure displays Harry Potter in his memorable school attire, ready to cast a spell. This limited edition figure of only 10,000 pieces is a perfect addition to any Harry Potter fan's collection. Now, before anyone says even Esco and this guy vanishes forever, I'd like to first thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new movie Maniacs, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter, that we could have a look in this review. This figure, like the Wicked Witch of the West, is limited to only 10,000 copies worldwide. The previously looked at Ted Lasso, in fact, the first figure we looked at from the movie Maniacs line was at 20,000, so he's actually double the quantity. Harry Potter, though, grabbing the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands, we're going to start things first in inches. Harry Potter, including the display stand, is 6.5 inches in height, or the figure's 16 centimeters tall. As for your required size comparisons, here's what Ted Lasso looks along with Harry Potter. Now, keep in mind, of course, they're using completely different types of display stands. The stand that Harry Potter happens to have ends up making him about almost the same size as Ted Lasso. Here's what the figure also looks like with the Wicked Witch of the West. And if I could only offer up a little bit of criticism when it comes to certainly the choice of stands that they used, I would have actually rather liked if they could have used a display stand for Harry Potter that was pretty much thin like what we get for Ted Lasso and Wicked Witch, so at least that the figures were about the same scale or appropriately scaled with one another without having display stands altering any of their heights. Old Harry will come include the same things as well that Ted Lasso and Wicked Witch came included with: a backdrop displayer, and also card standee, and a mystery box, to which again I have no idea what the contents are. First, let's look at the cardboard backdrop. The backdrop in this case is Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It's essentially just printed on cardboard, and the cardboard, as you can see, has been warped in a curved shape. You don't actually have to do anything when you remove this first from its packaging. If anything, the only thing you really need to do is add these acrylic display stands. You get one for the bottom and you get one for the top. And really, all realistically, I mean, you could just have this displayed on its own. You can have it really provided behind Harry Potter. You really don't even necessarily need to use the display stands, but they're there. They're also good to help stabilize it, and it also looks a little bit more polished too. So you're going to go ahead and just take the cardboard and fit it into the provided grooves of the plastic stand, both the bottom, and again, we'll do it to the top. Just fit that in place, and again, you've got yourself a little standee that can stand behind the figure. To go then one better, the figure also comes included with a tiny little placard. The placard is exactly the same as the ones we looked at before. Here happens to be Ted Lasso. I did say, I think in Wicked Witch's review, that I thought these may have been metal, but they're clearly plastic. They're molded silver plastic, identical to one another, both featuring as well celebrating 100 years of Warner Brothers. Harry Potter, in this case down below, specifically from the Goblet of Fire. So they were very accurate to match this to a specific movie and not just generically give us a Harry Potter figure. He's also a little bit older as well, so he would have been from the later sequels. The figure also comes included with a card. Now, again, the card, just to grab the one we got from Wicked Witch, you'll notice a very familiar sort of motif. What they do essentially is they give you a little cardboard or a little cutout showcasing the character. And then to the side here, they list 100 years of Warner Brothers with all the many movies that Warner Brothers has made. You may be able to make out a couple of them, like Gremlins, Matrix, there's Batman, the Jetsons. Jetsons are in there as well. But I mean, again, also on the back of these, not only do they serve to be just straight cards, but on the back, you'll also see as well their certificate of authenticities. Now, speaking only to the ones that I received from McFarlane Toys, you can see it's signed by down below, first of all, by Todd himself. But you can also see as well, and this doesn't seem to be a real signature in case you're curious, but you'll see as well, there should normally be a number, I think, right out of the, in this case, 10,000 copies. Mine just happens to be blank. I would imagine all the ones that are going to be in stores will actually have a number on the back. Mine just happens to be blank. So again, I can only speak to the one that I have in front of me. But we're going to go ahead and take this, and you're going to slot this inside the card standee. And then you got yourself another way of displaying Harry Potter. Well, he's got that in the back, that in the front. Let's look at what's then inside this. Now, it's not as heavy as the one that came included with Wicked Witch of the West. It might possibly even be a sticker, maybe a patch. I would imagine it's probably going to be like a sticker patch, similar to what we got from Ted Lasso. Let's see what we got inside. And it is, in fact, yes, a little sticker patch of Gryffindor. Once again, it is a sticker, so you can just peel that off if you happen to have a sticker album. I have a sticker album. You can put this in your sticker album. I'm going to do that right after this review. By the way, just to reach off to the side, while the Wicked Witch did come included with a poster, you can see as well that Ted Lasso came with AFC Richmond, another sticker. So I'm going to put those in my sticker albums after these reviews. Now, again, we're just going to move everything out of the way here. One thing that did kind of, I still remained very curious about this, and maybe curiosity killed the cat. I'm going to just move this out of the way. What is he talking about? Curiosity killing a cat. I'm going to move that out of the way. When I did have a look at these statues, again, they're not so much figures as they are statues. I'm going to just bring in Ted Lasso because he was the first one that we had a look at. These were all attached to their display bases, and I was almost certain that they were permanently attached to the display bases. While they did wobble back and forth, I thought perhaps it may have been a case where they're attached onto foot pegs and you just, again, simply just remove it from the base. Again, curiosity got the better of me, and I ended up doing that with Harry Potter. Not necessarily to the results I was hoping, because unfortunately, I'm just going to pick up Harry Potter in his display stand. I tried to take Potter off his stand, and what I ultimately did was I broke the pegs. Now, it does look to be the case, let this be a cautionary tale to all of you guys who are planning to pick these pieces up for yourself. I can easily glue this, and no one would be the wiser, other than maybe this being a documentation in this review that I did actually break the pegs. If anyone was just to come to my house as is, they probably would be the wiser that I would actually glue these. But it does look like the pegs were never intended to be removed. I mean, it was so easy. It was wiggling back and forth, and I thought to myself, do I really want to do it? Because I know what's going to happen. And ultimately, again, I just pulled the trigger, and I didn't even pry it either. I just sort of lifted it back and forth, and eventually the feet gave way. So you can see, again, like the raw plastic underneath where the pegs have just broken off, sadly. Again, I can easily fix that. I'm just going to glue it, and nobody would be the wiser. The thing about this, by then removing the display stand, not necessarily something I really should have done, but at least it does then make Harry Potter a little bit more smaller in scale. And then just to, again, like bring in, let's bring in the Wicked Witch just to show you. Yeah, I mean, it fits better, at least the scale-wise, to have all the figures sort of kind of consistently the same height with the same thickness of display stand. I almost feel as if they probably shouldn't have used a stand so big like this. They probably did this so they could incorporate the idea of what movie it's from, like Goblet of Fire. But if they had only made this thin, kept perhaps the same sort of flooring here, but just made it more paper thin. Not even paper thin, just the thickness of the plastic down there for the Wicked Witch. Kept it all kind of consistently the same, so all the stands sort of have the same sort of thickness to them. Anyways, the stand itself, as you can see, it's hollow on the bottom. There's not much really in the way of paint other than just the silver here on the front for Harry and Potter and Goblet of Fire down below there. I am bummed that I did break it, but again, I'm going to glue it. And again, if anything, if this can only just be, again, a cautionary tale for anyone that's planning to pick up any of the figures from this wave, don't try to force them off the pegs. You're probably going to have the same thing happen, and you can be very sad about it. With that being said, we're going to just move this to the side, because normally, again, Harry Potter would simply be attached to it. But in this case, let's pick the figure up and get a closer look at Harry Potter. Now, granted, it's Harry Potter from later into the series, and with Goblet of Fire, we have a much more aged-looking Harry Potter. I don't think it looks as much like, I don't think it bears as much the likeness, for example, of Harry as maybe Ted Lasso. Lasso and the Wicked Witch were two of my favorites. I think maybe perhaps Harry Potter not necessarily takes the bronze, but I think by comparing him just to Ted Lasso and the Wicked Witch, Ted Lasso was my favorite, Wicked Witch was my second favorite. I guess ultimately that does sort of put Harry Potter in that sort of bronze category. Head sculpt, for what it is, isn't actually that bad at all. I mean, again, like you can see, he's wearing the glasses. The glasses, admittingly, do distort a little bit of his eyes, so it's a little harder to kind of make out his peepers underneath those glasses. You can kind of see a little bit more as I maybe tilt it from the side there. That skin tone, and actually, the one thing that's really been consistent with all of these figures also, as well as the paint that they really applied to these. I mean, even to the part that the smaller little patch that he has is pretty recognizable for, again, how small that might actually be. They took the time to paint the tie. They took the time to paint the inside hood of his wizard's jacket. The jacket itself, while being hard plastic on the sleeves, remains still softer plastic for the rest that drapes down on his body. You can see some nice dark burgundy on the applied paint on the inside. He does have some nice sculpting also that they put into his sweater. You can again see some nice panel lining that they added down below that match the same colors as Gryffindor at the top there. Pants are well wrinkled, I guess as wrinkled as pants should be if it naturally drapes on anyone's leg. There seems to be like a little bit of scuffing almost, where it's a little bit more of a lighter gray that they've added in there as well. And again, Mr. Potter's footwear, overlooking obviously the fact that we don't normally been able to get the chance to see the undersoles of any of these statues. But unfortunately, just because of me, I broke the pegs. And again, you can kind of see what Harry Potter's feet would look like underneath. It really, again, does look like these really should have been pegs that would be removable. And if anything, I could also say, I do wish that these figures could have, these statues, let me just stop to correct myself, these statues, I really wish that they could have actually had the means to remove them from the stands. Not that I would really have said to myself, geez, I really wish that, like the Wicked Witch of the West, for example, man, I really wish I could just remove her from the display stand. But I think, again, like to make the pegs available there, even if they're not removable or not, I probably just would have made the option available just to remove the figures in the first place. Now, when it comes to these, again, there's no articulation at all. While you may look to, like Harry, for example, very much does look like he doesn't have any cut whatsoever in his neck nor in his head. So you can't remove his head at all. You can't move it. Can't move his shoulders either. You can't move his hand that holds the wand inside his fingers. You can't move this hand either. And there's, again, no articulation at all for these figures. But again, like where I feel this line does well with is the way that they're sculpted and the way that they're painted. Let's just get Harry back onto his display stand. What I might also just do when it comes to displaying this guy, while he really does have sort of the pose going for him, if you really want to look at the placard or the front of the display stand so you can actually see the movie in front of you, then you probably will want to pose Potter that way. I would much rather, I think, pose Potter slightly to the side. And actually, the more I'm thinking about it, I might actually ultimately do that with many of these Movie Maniac figures, just display them slightly to the side. Although I think Wicked Witch might actually look a little bit better straightforward. And once again, here's what he looks like with Ted Lasso. Of the three, I would say the one that matches the most of Movie Maniacs, boy, that's a lot of M's, is the Wicked Witch of the West. Wicked Witch of the West not only is in a movie, but she's also in a Maniac. While Harry Potter was in a movie, I don't know if I necessarily would categorize him as a Maniac. And Ted Lasso, I don't think checks off either one of these boxes. But though, I do like the fact that we are getting a brand new line of Movie Maniacs figures. They are those smaller. They are not as posable necessarily as the Movie Maniacs we looked at before. But you know, if you again go into it knowing very well what exactly you're getting, I think they make for nice looking collectible statues you can still put on the shelf. One thing I have noticed about the Movie Maniacs stuff that we're getting now from McFarlane Toys is that the certificate of authenticity is the only place that actually tells you what number it is out of that limited run. And even with, unfortunately, these reviews, I wasn't even able to tell you what mine happened to be because, again, mine was blank. I can only, again, imagine that when these are eventually hitting store shelves, which I think that they're starting to hit in April, that they're probably going to be having numbers on them. But you're not going to know what those numbers are until you eventually open up the packaging. It's not like the numbers are anywhere on the boxes, at least that I've been able to find. So the only way you'll actually know what number you have out of that 10,000 limited release run is by actually opening up the packaging and not essentially making it mint anymore. One thing also rather interesting too is that it's only on the back of the trading card. It's nowhere on the figure or statue itself. So if you happen to have the two divorced from one another and you have that card end up somewhere else, you're not going to actually know, and there's really nothing to tell you necessarily what number this one is over one that somebody else may have in their collection space. So make sure, of course, that if you're looking to display these ones on your shelf, do keep the trading card either stored away somewhere else safe, or just have it displayed along with the statue, maybe even behind it or along next to it. Again, I do like the idea that they included the standees. It does sort of hark back to the original Movie Maniac stuff we got before. We didn't have granted certificate of authenticities back in the day. Oh no. We did actually have instead like a skull standee. And within the skull standee was the poster. I don't think for obvious reasons they couldn't have used a skull standee for Harry Potter. They certainly couldn't have used it for Ted Lasso. Let's not get too harsh with Ted Lasso that we're going to start to include skull standees. But I do kind of like that they kept some of the things from the earlier Movie Maniacs days, carried it over now to the newer stuff we're getting before. Granted, yes, it's still, they're not as tall of statues. That's one thing I did mention in the review of Ted Lasso, that I do kind of wish that these were at least in same scale as the other Movie Maniacs. They didn't have to have the posability that the older figures did have. At the very least, though, if they had only just made them a little bit taller. The color tops that McFarlane Toys did before, I always still feel was the next successive, sort of the passed on torch from Movie Maniacs. The color tops I thought was the closest thing to Movie Maniacs. What we're getting now is not as much Movie Maniacs, but it does have a lot of cool detailing and some really great paint applications also as well. What do you guys think of Harry Potter, though? Let me know down below in the comments section. And of the ones that we've certainly have had a look at, Ted Lasso first, Wicked Witch second, and now Harry Potter third, which ones could you see yourselves picking up? And maybe also as well, what other characters would you like to see Movie Maniacs do next? I don't know if necessarily it's all going to be confined to Warner Brothers, but what characters would you like to certainly see McFarlane Toys tackle with future movie Maniacs? Let me know down below in the comments section. Certainly also as well, I'd like to, speaking of McFarlane Toys, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did take the time and provide the sample of the brand new movie Maniacs, Harry Potter, and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter, that we can have a look at this review. Also, if you guys enjoyed this review, speaking of which, why not throw it a like? If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and on board to see more stuff from McFarlane Toys, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.